Welcome to another edition of our Invest in Lucia video discussions. Today we will be speaking about manufacturing and agro-processing, and we have a special guest with us here today, Mr. Ilan Labadi, who used to be our investment services officer for manufacturing. Now he's in a different capacity at Invest in Lucia. And we also have Philbert Lubrin, the Senior Investment Services Officer, and Alana Lancico, our Investment Services Manager. I am Claudia McDowell, Communications Officer at ISL, and I will just be asking a few questions to get into the discussion. So we will start off with a simple one. It's obvious that the manufacturing and agro-processing sector will be key in self-sustainability and food security. How is ISL recognizing this, and what are we doing to help this sector grow?
Well, that's a complex, simple question. Thank you for that, Claudia. Food security is something that everyone in the world right now is discussing. It has come to the forefront. It was always one of those sustainable goals that we spoke of, but now we actually have to look at it. And it has always been a key sector for ISL. We are blessed here in Saint Lucia with the ability to grow food. I mean, some people take that for granted. When you look at, there's some Caribbean islands where you cannot grow anything. They have no running water. I know we're in the middle of a drought right now, but away from that, we have our farming industry, we have our fresh fruits that we can provide for all other sectors, for everybody else to benefit, and we need to look at ways where we can get our own enough to produce enough here so we can take care of our people, especially in times of now where the borders are closed, where we're getting cargo in, we're getting food in, but at slower rates, and we need to look at not just in terms of growing food, but our other parts of our food. You know, it's an issue with like our chicken, right? So this is something that we're looking at ISL, and we will discuss this a little bit later on. But just to that, it is a key sector. Also, we go through different periods where we have certain products or like foods where we produce too much or we produce too little. So that's where agro-processing comes in. When we have gluts, where you have, there's sometimes where you get 2 plums for $20, and then there's sometimes you get 500 plums for $1. These are things that we need to look at. Sometimes you get so much, there's trucks of grapefruits for $15, sometimes it's one grapefruit for $10 when you go by the market. So these are things that we need to try to balance. Why can't we have year-round production of those things, you know? What ways can we incorporate to give us year-round limes, year-round avocados? You know, where can we put where we can actually look at processing and growing in non-traditional forms, you know, different types of farming. You look at stuff where you have even like cannabis, right? Where traditionally it's grown in the ground, but now there's so many countries growing them in like grow farms, in buildings, you know. So all of these things are things that we have to look at and make sure that Saint Lucia is at the cutting edge of that in the Caribbean. I don't know if anybody else wants to add on to that.
Yeah, well, Philbert, you're right. And definitely, I mean, the government of Saint Lucia has done quite a bit in terms of trying to grow the productive sector of the economy. And manufacturing and agro-processing has been on the forefront. If we look at the Fiscal Incentives Act, which manufacturers and investors could actually access concessions through that act to basically assist with the plans and so on. The government continues to create that enabling environment for stimulating the growth of that sector and so on. And ISL has basically recognized that and has always promoted the manufacturing sector and the agro-processing sector over the years. It is one of those key areas that we promoted over the years, but tourism and infrastructure, of course, these are two other sectors, both hard and soft infrastructure we promoted as well. We have seen the development also of a number of small businesses in that sector. And what we've recognized is the need for space to actually support these small businesses. And one of the projects ISL is working on, of course, is in the incubator program, where we could actually create smaller spaces for those smaller businesses. Currently, in terms of support, Saint Lucia has about 7 industrial estates. We have over 27 factory shells, which probably over 95% of the shells have been rented. And so there is a need for space in terms of the demand that we've been seeing for those small businesses. And that's one of the ways Saint Lucia is looking to support those small manufacturers. But there is definitely a need to actually be self-sustainable, I should say, like you mentioned, Philip.
Claudia, just to add, I mean, in terms of food security, Saint Lucia has already been doing a lot of work in that area already, because we work very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture in terms of providing access to suitable sites for farmers to actually grow their crops. I mean, we've been involved in the Youth Agricultural and Entrepreneurship Project with the Ministry of Agriculture. And then we also work directly with various farmers and cooperatives in identifying suitable sites, relocating, getting those sites prepared so that, you know, there's no delay in crops being made available to the local market, because ultimately that feeds the tourism sector and that goes throughout the economy. So that's something we've been doing and we would continue to do.
Okay, thank you. So right now in mid-COVID, people are referring to the manufacturing industry as sort of a fallback or the salvation right now, since we're not able to depend on tourism. So I want to ask, why is it important that this is not only short-term, but this sector is stable for our long-term goal?
Well, Claudia, food security definitely is on the forefront of everybody's minds. Continues to have a negative trade balance. And so the sector must not only be stable, but the sector must continue to grow. The linkages we have with the various other sectors, the manufacturing sector has with the other sectors, with agriculture, for example. We see the need to actually grow the agricultural sector to support the manufacturing sector, because they work hand in hand. So one of the key things for that sector is the fact that it creates a lot of employment. The sector employs quite a few Saint Lucians, both directly and indirectly. But we want to continue making that dent in unemployment. More importantly, we are not self-sufficient. And so we import quite a lot, like I said. And our hotels, for example, we want to make progress and not continue to increase our import bill. We continue to see the impact of COVID, what that has created. We are quite vulnerable. We're looking at climate change, and we have a hurricane season every year, like Philip mentioned. And look what happened in Dominica, for example. So we must definitely try to boost our production of livestock and other agricultural commodities, so as not to rely heavily on the external market, which could spell disaster for us in the event that, you know, these trade lines are affected.
I mean, and even just shortly, just to add, just for manufacturing, what COVID has showed us is that there is room for growth in our current manufacturing right now, because I mean, COVID gave us alcohol sands. I mean, we import hand sanitizers. Why? When we have our local distillery here that can make hand sanitizer, which everybody uses, it reminds us of our Odenos rum, you know, that we have, and you spray it on your hands and you sanitize. We don't have to import this anymore. This helps our balance of payments, you know. So there's room for growth in our manufacturing, and there's room for innovation as well. And now is the time to innovate as we try to navigate this new normal.
Okay, so there's a reason why manufacturing is not as big of a sector as we want it to be. So what are the challenges facing investors in this sector, whether local or foreign?
Yeah, well, there has always been a common denominator with that. In my experience, one of the things that always come up is the access to finance. Traditionally, lending institutions have always required you to have cash or own property to be able to access the funds. And small businesses trying to boost their production, trying to export, get export ready, promote their products through various marketing channels. For example, basically just trying to grow their company. They always faced with accessing funds for growth. We have to find more creative ways or look at other alternatives for funding these producers. Logistics has always been an issue, cost of shipping. So that with the shipping lines not being available when you want it, or where you want it, I should say, you look at shipping is always a serious concern for investors in terms of bringing in goods in and exporting goods out of the country, especially in Europe and the US. Because while we are located strategically, we still do not have enough options with shipping, and costs will always remain an issue. I know that the cost of electricity as well has always been a concern.
Right. That's the main one for me.
Definitely, you look at Trinidad. If you probably want to invest in the region, there are other countries that electricity is much cheaper.
Yeah.
So with that's definitely a concern for investors, especially when you're looking at a large capital investment with heavy equipment, machinery, and so on that has to be running every day, and you have to produce a lot. Definitely, the cost of electricity becomes a concern for the manufacturer. Let's see, the availability of skilled labor, that has come up. It may be related directly to maybe certain manufacturers, but you find that manufacturers say that while labor is available, they're looking for specific or technical skills from employees, and that has been a concern for some manufacturers. Raw materials has also been a concern. If I remember, when I say the availability of raw materials, we're talking about a steady and constant supply. Today you might have it, tomorrow you might not have it, and that is what concerns some manufacturers, especially if you're into agro-processing. You look at Barron Foods, and of course they need peppers all the time, tomatoes, and so on. So these things have to be in a constant supply, especially if you planning to export and so on. That definitely affect your operations.
Right. I think Dylan hit everything on the head there. The main thing, of course, is electricity, the cost to produce. That's a main. That's one of the main challenges that investors have currently with manufacturing. Of course, we can work on areas where we work around policy for different forms of energy and producing of energy, but that's a longer field challenge. But as Dylan mentioned as well, in terms of providing consistent raw materials, it's a challenge as well. So these are the challenges that we try to overcome in helping to make this sector more stable.
Yeah,
and I think Olan. Yeah, go ahead, Olan.
No, I was just saying. I remember when I attended a seminar in Italy with WIPA, the World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, and we had testimonials from small manufacturers. Well, when I say small, they would look like manufacturers to us, right? But there's a small parts manufacturer from Europe who made certain parts for BMW, Mercedes, and so on. And they said one of the first things they look at when they actually study in a country for for manufacturing, and they're doing the assessment, one of the first things they look at is the cost of electricity and availability of electricity. And that was on the forefront of the discussion in terms of what it would cost them in terms of electricity, because it could decide on whether they invest in that country or not, because cost would be a significant factor. And the other thing was the availability of skilled labor. And they actually looked at the ease of doing business ranking to actually make that assessment.
Yeah, what I was going to add to Erlen's point is that when he spoke about exporting, I think that's very important, because it's one thing to try to meet the demand of the local market, one. But then if you want to expand after that, you have to export. So then you have the whole issue of standards, quality, and then the issues of cost of shipping come into play once again. And that's, how easily, how cost effectively can you access a new market. So I think in terms of standards and quality and the ability to export, those things are crucial as well if you want a manufacturing sector that's going to grow and be vibrant. We're a small country, only so many people, so your demand is going to be limited at a point. This is why the tourism sector is important as well, because you bring in additional demand into the country for your local businesses. So yeah, just to add to that, I think that's an important issue to raise as well.
Okay, so we've established the issues that investors are facing and how ISL is addressing some of these issues and helping the sector grow. But I want to ask you tell listeners, people who may know a potential investor, why is it important that they come to invest in Lucia if you're interested in agro-processing or manufacturing?
Because we read all the
Should they
acts.
go?
we have to read all the acts. We have to read the Fiscal Incentives Act and the Brewery Act, right? Right, Ellen? We have to make sure that we know those things, so when investors ask us questions, we can guide them. It's pretty much again what we do, as Ellen saying. It's one of our main focus sectors.
Yeah, for us, I mean, the investors definitely could contact ISL, because we definitely have a proven track record of facilitating a number of businesses, local, regionally, and international businesses that are actually very successful here. So, and unlike many IPAs in the region and probably the world, Invest Saint Lucia is unique in that it is one of those IPAs with assets, both land and factory shells, which it could use to leverage investment. Invest Saint Lucia, therefore, acts as that one-stop shop for investors, providing facilitation from the minute you submit that proposal to establishment and to the point of establishing your business, as well as providing aftercare services, which is very important. We have a very competent team ready to guide investors through that process and ensure that the journey is very easy. So I think, especially when it comes to manufacturing, since we have facilitated and promoted manufacturing for so long over the years, we hands down feel what I should say on facilitating investors in that sector for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and we're a statutory body, but we basically make our own money. We get no government subvention, so we are in business ourselves. So I mean, it gives us that rare insight to help a business owner that's coming in, given the nuances of different things to help them make sure that the business is successful. That's what we do, and it's been in here for years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all my questions. I just want to ask if any of you have any ending notes, anything to let our listeners know, and again, push potential investors.
Well, we are here. We're open for business. We never closed. We've been working remotely. we've been working with investors. It's all hands on deck, and we have a very keen interest in seeing this industry grow, this sector grow, for the benefit of Saint Lucians. At the end of the day, and we're here to assist.
Thank you again, Erlen, Philbert, and Alana for joining me today. I just want to let our listeners know that we're, like Philbert and Erlen said, open for business. So you can please contact us at www.investinlucia.com or use our email address info@investinlucia.com, and feel free to share your comments, questions, and any feedback that you have for us. We're looking forward to hearing from you, and thank you.
Okay, bye.